Welcome to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast with Ron and Kristin, where leadership meets entertainment. This podcast features stories with names and certain aspects that have been changed to keep submissions private. Enjoy the show.
Welcome back to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast, where leadership meets entertainment. I'm Kristin Sokoloff, and I'm joined by my fully clothed co-host, Ron Ward. Not sure we can say the same for our guest today. Be honest, Jeff, are you actually wearing pants?
Not entirely, but that wasn't part of the agreement. So I have a shirt on. You're welcome, and I'm excited to be here.
I got to reel it in here. Kristin's already semi-introduced our guest, but Jeff has taken survival, grit, mental toughness to a whole new level. You've seen him dominate on Discovery's Naked and Afraid and Last One Standing, my favorite. And he's got more days surviving the wild than any contestant in the show's history.
It's wild. That is right. He's not just a survivalist. He's a strategist, a motivator, speaker. Was just at SAS, actually, the Student Action Summit for Turning Point University that I was at. And some may say an antagonist, and in many ways, a leader in extreme conditions. Please welcome Jeff Zausch to the podcast. Jeff, welcome, and I hope I pronounced your last name right.
You did. You nailed it, you guys. I'm excited to be here.
Sweet.
Thank you so much. Clothed and unafraid. Yeah, let's roll.
Yes.
All right. So, Jeff, as a former federal law enforcement officer and academy director, I have had some adventures, but nothing like you've had. Let's start with some basic information. I was going to go into the pants as well, but, Kristin stole my thunder. So first off, as you know, this is a leadership podcast, so there may be some listeners unfamiliar with the show Naked and Afraid. Let's start with some basics. How did you become a survivalist, and why did you decide to go on Naked and Afraid? Of course, if you have any inspirations, throw them in there.
Yeah, I was raised as a country boy. All right, I grew up on a farm. Had a father and a grandfather and a bunch of male energy in the family that taught me how to be tough and resilient, and they taught me about self-reliance from a very young age. So I was hunting and tracking and building little survival shelters, from a young age. But it was really getting into mountain climbing in my late teens, early 20s, that really got me into the true survival world, because you can only climb so many mountains before you find yourself in a real life survival situation. And that happened on a number of occasions. And I realized I loved it. I actually loved the survival part of these situations more than most people would. And I was inspired from my father, actually, from a young age. My father grew up with a deformed heart, and he had 13 open heart surgeries throughout his lifetime. And so for him, life was survival.
Yeah, right.
And I watched a man have to, battle each and every day. And he was appreciative for every little moment and every extra day he got on this earth. And seeing that and pairing that with my love of the outdoors, I think it naturally pushed me into the world of wilderness survival.
And Jeff, carry on with that. How did you find out about Naked and Afraid? Give us the behind the scenes. How does one decide to enter a show where you're wearing no clothes and surviving?
Well, I was one of the first ones to ever do the Naked and Afraid challenge. And when it first started 13 years ago, the man that created this, his name was Steve, good friend of mine now. In his mind, he was trying to recreate the Adam and Eve story. Two people that had it made, they had everything they needed, and they were cast out of the garden and into the wilderness with nothing, with no tools, no clothes. And so he found it fascinating. How did Adam and Eve deal with this? And so he wanted to recreate that idea. Well, when they first told me about it, I didn't know this. I had no idea it was going to be a naked survival show. And some people may hear that and they think, "Oh, that's crazy. I'm not into that. What a weird show." But I tell you what, like taking away your clothing, which is your first line of defense against the mosquitoes, the insects, the weather, the cold, the heat, whatever it is. Clothing is your first layer of defense, and when you take that away, it is exponentially more difficult to survive out there.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
wild. I have an uncle who urinated in the woods and ended up getting a tick on his sack. And, I can't even imagine how many times you've had to go to the bathroom in the woods. And, it's just wild to me, So just that's like one tiny little piece of it. But when you were stripped down to literally nothing, mentally, physically, right? What role did leadership play out there?
It's funny you mentioned the ticks because it's the ticks and the
Oh,
millions of mosquitoes and also the viruses and the bacteria. I've been hospitalized with some of the most deadly diseases on the planet: bacterial meningitis, leptospirosis, Rocky Mountain spotted fever,
oh
and
my
many others.
gosh.
And I tell you what, it's there's many prime qualities of leadership that come into play out there. One is self-belief.
Mm,
Okay, optimism, believing in yourself, maybe when no one else does. That is so critical. Loyalty to the people in your circle, uncompromising loyalty to the people in your circle, I think is very valuable because
mm,
when we're put out there in these survival situations, we usually have one partner, and it's you and them, and you have their back, they have yours, and if either one of you slip up or take your eye off the ball for 1 second, it can literally, it costs the life of your partner if you're
mm.
not on your game. I mean, there's times when in the middle of the night we pull shifts around the fire, and in Africa there's hyenas and leopards trying to get
Oh my
in
gosh.
our boma shelter every night, trying to rip us out of there. And so if somebody falls asleep during their shift, I mean, that can be it, right? That can be it.
Wow.
And at nighttime there's no camera crew with us, there's no crew guys with it. We are on our own at nighttime. and
Mm.
and so, I mean, responsibility, the responsibility we have to ourselves and to our partner, it's a much higher responsibility than I've ever had in the office, right? It's
Oh,
paramount. So,
yeah.
yeah, leadership plays a big role.
Yeah, I told someone, Jeff, honestly, I think, of course, in the government, I couldn't have done it, but I would almost have new leaders watch some episodes of Naked and Afraid because of all the leadership principles. So you mentioned, we talk a lot in our executive coaching program about, mental toughness, mindset. What is your internal conversation? Like, we watch you on the show and man, you are so solid. But what does that look like? I'm talking about you're cold, you're wet, you're eat up with mosquitoes. What do you say? How do you do it, Jeff?
Man, it's two-sided. Okay, one side is it's natural as a human being to doubt yourself.
Mm.
No matter how accomplished we are, no matter how many gold medals we've won at the Olympics, that next Olympics it's just as nerve-wracking as the first one for these athletes. And so when I go out there and I feel it. I feel it. It may be my eighth challenge. I've now done 286 days in the wilderness on
Wow.
Naked and Afraid. And the next time I go out, I know I'm going to get the nerves, the butterflies in my chest. And so I have to believe in myself. I have to have optimism and confidence that I can do this, and push all of those negative thoughts out. Because the negative thoughts, they're natural. It's just part of being human, but you have to push them to the side. And that's one side of the coin. And the other side of the coin is knowing your limitations, not being too cocky, not being too confident, to be honest about your weaknesses. And in those moments I rely on prayer.
Mm.
For me, that's my secret sauce. I,
Yeah.
I go to God and I say, "Hey, we both know I'm in over my head here, whatever it is," and I ask for help. So being confident where I need to be, and understanding my limitations where it's realistic. And I
Yeah.
think those two combined, for me, it's worked out real well.
And Jeff, to take that one step further, I was glad you mentioned your faith. I wondered what role your faith played in survival. But as an observer, and I mentioned my neighbor Lisa and I watch, and when we hear someone start to say, I don't know if I can go another day. The moment, it's like it goes from the mind, but when you see those words, we go, he's gone or she's gone. You just know it. Is that your experience? And how important are the words you speak?
Oh my goodness. I'm so glad you bring that up. I'm so glad because I've seen that firsthand with some of my partners. When and for them, it's interesting. It starts with one sentence
Mm,
and it's, oh, I wish I could just be home
mm,
right now. Or they
Mm,
start talking about the comforts of home or their family and once your mind leaves where you currently are, it breaks that strength that you need to have. And it's true. You cannot vocalize failure. You
mm.
can't do it. And earlier I just now admitted that sometimes I doubt myself. Well, that when I tell people that, it surprises them because they never see that
right.
from what they watch on television, and it's because I never show it. I never
Mm.
say it. I never show it. It's in my mind, but I never put that out into the real world. I put the opposite out. The fake it till you make it. That's real. That is a real thing. But yeah, you never want to bring negativity in. I love the book The Secret. If you've read it,
I have.
the idea of the ability to believe something into existence. I
Mm.
believe that. If you believe hard enough, if you dream big enough, you can literally make something your reality. And that's the opposite of talking about negative thoughts and feelings.
Yeah, we're so aligned. I always say, no one, I tell leadership people this, no one wants to see a leader in crisis. They want you to
Right.
bring stability
Hmm.
into the
Yeah.
situation. I've said that. Kristin's heard me say that numerous
Oh
times.
yeah. It is incredibly important. Everyone's looking to you. It'd be like
Hmm.
looking up at the pilot, and it can see they're freaking out. It's like then
Yeah.
you're gonna lose 300 passengers on the plane are gonna start freaking out. So Jeff, survival and leadership, it's not glamorous, right? So raw, painful, sometimes lonely, I can imagine, because you don't always have the person that goes out there with you for the entire segment, right? Like what's the percentage? And you don't have to pull a exact percentage, but can you tally how many times you were left within the first 5, 6, 7 days of having a partner out there?
It's usually about 60% of the time
Okay.
that we have people tap out within the first 5 days. And so for me, it's ironic. You can be on a 21-day challenge, you can be on a 40-day challenge, but it's the first 5 days that will get you. That's what will get you because that's when you're feeling a little bit unsure. You
Sure.
start doubting yourself. The pain is fresh. It's similar if you take somebody on January 1st and send them to the gym because they have,
Yeah.
the dreams of getting their new bod and getting fit. Usually the gyms, for those of us that go, it's the first 2 weeks in January when they're
Yeah.
packed,
Oh
they are
yeah.
full. And after about January 15th, they start to fizzle out and the gym becomes empty again. And it's the same way in business when people are doing startups or it's enduring the pain, enduring the
Hmm.
suck, as we
Yeah.
call it out there, enduring the
Yes.
suck. If you can endure that initial wave of uncertainty and terror or whatever it is, then that's what dictates whether you're going to be a failure or whether you're going to be a success story. Is
Yeah.
whether you're able to push through those first waves.
Well, it's great to hear that from you because I was thinking about, I'm like, I know this isn't the show alone, right? Where I think a huge piece of it is the fact that they were alone, but then actually you were alone for the vast majority of it. But what's one of the lowest points for you and how did you climb out of it?
Man, for me, it was day 52 of a 60-day challenge, the first 60-day Naked and Afraid we ever did. And it
Wow.
was just me and my partner, Laura. And we had battled through everything you can imagine, deadly centipede bites, a category 5 typhoon, hypothermia, and everything else in between to get to day 52 and we're only 8 days away from the finish line. We could see the finish, and I came down with a 105-degree fever,
Ugh.
and it
Oh,
was
wow.
it was I was losing consciousness. I actually did
Mm.
pass out a couple of times, And so it was very, very borderline whether I was going to have to be taken to a hospital.
Mm.
And I was just trying everything I could. It was going to a hospital now on day 52 of a 60-day journey was the worst thing in the world that I could even imagine. I wanted more than anything to finish that challenge. So in the middle of the night, I actually crawled myself to the riverbank and I submerged myself up to my nose in the river water to allow my body temperature to come
Oh,
down with
wow.
that cold water flowing over my body. And I stayed in that water for 5 hours till the sun came up,
Whoa.
and my jaw was locked shut just from shivering and being so cold, and I was willing to die in that river. I had already made up my mind, like this is the last step. That this is either going to make me or break me. And fortunately, the fever broke in the morning. I went on
Wow.
and I finished and completed the first 60-day challenge ever with no clothes and no tools.
Wow.
Um, and it was a success story. A couple weeks later, I actually ended up in the hospital again. Found out it was bacterial meningitis actually that had hit me on day 52.
Oh my goodness. And that's, I heard you mention you have some hearing loss from that, permanent hearing loss.
I do, yeah. I have about 35% hearing loss in both ears. Yeah.
Wow. You
Yeah,
were really on the brink there, brink. Wow, that's wild, Jeff.
my
Ron,
mind raced
yeah.
to seeing you and Laura in that boat, and it looked like the storm blowing in. That's a great
Yeah.
that was a good episode for sure. That Excel. So let's bring it a little brighter here. So Jeff, you have this ability, you have this charisma, and you really connect with the people. It's like they're watching and you talk directly to them. It's almost like you got this inside sense of humor with your viewers. How important is humor both out there and maybe in the workplace? Kristin and I did an episode called Bring Humor Back, or no, is humor still a thing? Because
Yeah.
people got so sensitive and people are miserable at work. Where'd you get your sense of humor? How important is that for you in survival and in life?
Having a good humor and a good energy, a good positive outlook on life is everything in a bad situation. And when you're surviving in the wilderness, much every day is a bad situation. Every day you're trying not to die. It's you don't ever get a good day in survival. So laughing about your situation, finding funny little things to keep you entertained or whatever it is, it's it's so so important. And in fact, at home on my wall, those of us that are Christians or religious, we often will have a portrait or a painting of Jesus somewhere in our house. Well, most of the ones I've seen, Jesus is very serious. He's a serious guy. But I have a big portrait in my house of Jesus laughing. And
That's
Love
that's
it.
awesome.
so my humor, my positive energy. It's not just in survival. I wrap it in every part of my life that I do, and it helps. It really really helps. It really does. And so yeah, when I talk to the camera, when I'm out there surviving, when I'm covered in mosquito bites or bleeding from a machete wound or whatever it is, I mean, you just gotta laugh sometimes, and it really does help because it's life is not meant to be too serious, and
Right.
especially in the business world, we sometimes get lost in that. We get
Yeah.
lost in the seriousness of what we're doing, and keeping a light head on our shoulders can really do some wonders.
I love that. I have to say, I was a guest on two different like political commentary shows yesterday, and one was like a fun. They're like be sassy, and you're just a fun type of layout, and then the other one was more your traditional serious. And it was really tough going from. I much prefer the lighthearted, like let's make fun of the absurdity that's out there. People find that easy to digest when you're laughing at the absurdity, laughing at whatever scenario you found yourself in. And I do think that humor couldn't be, I mean, it's so incredibly important. And to your point, we can't take ourselves too serious, right? So I think that that's what's resonated with so many people, like why you've resonated with them is because of that unique approach. And they're able to actually like watch the show and digest what's happening versus like just so, so depressed throughout the whole thing. I have
Yeah.
to tell you, oh, go
And
ahead.
and what it is it's not necessarily the humor or the lightheartedness, it's the authenticity of it. So,
Yes.
if you have somebody that is just not, a happy sunshine type personality, and they try, it's going to be obvious, right? It's like
Yeah,
we
yeah.
it's everyone can recognize authenticity. And so it's, also, if you are a sunshine type personality, but you try to put on that rigid professional, like,
Yeah.
leadership type frame, if you're a football coach or whatever it is, it doesn't play. It just doesn't
Right.
work. So I always encourage people, be yourself, be authentic, and whatever that is, whether you're a sunshine type of person or you're a thunderstorm, it doesn't matter. But just be authentically
Be authentic.
yourself, and it
Yes.
always works. It
What a
always
great
works.
message. You're spot on. I'm glad that you said that because you are spot on. Not everyone is going to have that outlook. Tell us about your time on Last One Standing. How did that challenge differ from your other experiences? And were there moments when alliances, influence, or even manipulation showed up, like in a leadership setting?
Oh man. Oh man. Everything was different. Okay. Everything was different because, for those of the people that haven't seen it, Last One Standing is a competition. So it's me competing against many others to be the last one standing out there in the wild, overcoming not just what nature has to throw at you, but overcoming survival challenges and being the best to do certain survival skills. So the competition is a whole different thing, because the previous Naked and Afraid, the end goal was just to make it to the end. You weren't competing against anybody. You didn't want anybody to lose. You just wanted to, be the last, be cross that finish line. So the Last One Standing, not only did I have to focus on myself, but I had to focus on the competition and everyone
Mm,
else. And so I wanted myself to win as equally as badly as wanting them to lose. And I actually had to take conscious action to make them lose. And sometimes competition can be ugly, right?
yes.
And when we have to, hit someone in the face, it some people view that as, oh, that wasn't nice, or that wasn't kind. Well, yeah, yeah, sometimes sacking the quarterback, a 270-pound linebacker hitting the quarterback, that's the nicest thing to do, but it's what has to be done to win someone the game. So yeah, it brought in a lot of that competitive energy, which was very interesting.
That's awesome. Jeff, my book has 100 dirty lessons. So I tell stories, then I put a dirty lesson. So one of those is never underestimate your competitors. And I think people sometimes they want the unicorns and rainbows. They don't understand that sometimes business is cutthroat. And I'm not talking about, being dishonest or unethical, but still you've got to compete. And I have noticed that there are survivalists, but they don't have the competitive edge.
Mm.
And that comes up pretty quickly. And I definitely saw that with you. I want to throw something out here, and I know you dealt with this probably on Reddit and other places, but in season 1 of Last One Standing, it appeared, and by the way, I told you my neighbor, my tech person that you just met, we watched this together. She was adamant that you were the only one that got it. Like, this is a competition. What do they want to do? Sing Kumbaya? But we literally, it seemed that all of these people ganged up against you. And we know that there is a form of bullying in the workplace, in the schools. So I would like for you to talk about how that made you feel and maybe give some advice for other people who are getting bullied in life.
Yeah, no, thanks for bringing that up. And it actually goes perfectly to what you were just talking about. Competition, competing versus just being a sour person.
Mm.
And the difference is, competition is, it's what we're all doing. We're all trying to be the best. We're all trying to succeed. But bullying and being mean and being spiteful, that's personal. So competition's not personal. That's just business. That's doing what everybody's doing. The moment you turn that and make it personal, that's when it causes problems. And that's what happened in Last One Standing season 1. Is I was competing. you know, it's probably accurate that I was being the most aggressive competitor, and I was being authentic about it. So I was telling them that I'm going to compete and I'm going to beat you and you're going to lose. And sometimes that rubs people the wrong way, but also it can be a strategy too. So if you make someone leave the competitive realm and enter the personal realm of
Mm,
bullying and being spiteful, that can actually be your advantage because then they're not thinking on the end goal of winning. They're thinking on what can I do to hurt this person? What can I
mm.
do to make them have a bad day? Whereas my mind was only on winning. And you know, obviously always following the rules. We never break the rules. We never do anything unethical, but if it's by the rule book and it's going to help me win, then I'm going to do it. And unfortunately, some people didn't take kindly to that.
Yeah. And what advice would you give someone who's being bullied at school, maybe in the workplace? Maybe it's a mild form of bullying. What advice would you give them?
Well, I think it's a compliment. And it was for me because the
Yeah.
reason for my bullying and last one standing was my authenticity. I was just being myself,
I love
you
it.
know, and I was a friend to everyone out there, but I was also a competitor, letting them know that I've got you, you know, and we're going to compete and I'm going to enjoy it. And so usually, I would say in 9 out of 10 cases, if you're being bullied in school or something like that, it's usually because you're doing something that other people envy. And
I,
and a lot of times people envy authenticity. They're threatened by it. Because it's not, you know, it's not what they were taught or what they were shown growing up. So I would say first off, first thing is be like, take it as a compliment. If they're bullying you, it's because you have something that they want,
Hmm.
or you have something that they are threatened by, whether it's success, you might be the smartest one in the room, you know, whatever it might be. And so it just let it roll off your shoulders. Don't pay any attention to it. It's a waste of your time to pay attention to the people that are bullying you. Continue doing what you're doing because it's a compliment.
I
I think
love
that's
that.
great. Yeah, I do too. And I'm curious, reflecting back on like your upbringing, why do you feel you were empowered to be so authentic? Because I personally deal with this as well. I'm a very blunt, straightforward person. I see the humor in everything. And I'm very transparent. And that does rub some people the wrong way. And so but I reflect on my upbringing and that was encouraged. What about you though? Is there like a pivotal moment that you remember just being like kind of rally, go for it, Jeff, just be yourself.
Well, I was raised a little bit more country than the other kids that were in school with me. So from a young age, I remember going to school, and I was the only kid wearing cowboy boots and a cowboy hat. You know,
Nice.
and you know, and so I got teased, I got bullied. But I tell you what, I never took those cowboy boots off,
Good for
and
you.
I never changed. You know what I did or how I did it, and I think for me it was because going back to my dad, watching my dad survive, watching my
Hmm.
dad, you know, in the hospital, and my dad had told me many stories of his upbringing, and he was bullied all the time because he was, you know, he was never in school, and when he was constantly being pulled out for doctor's appointments and
Mm-hmm.
everything, and you know, anytime they had an event at school, swimming or whatever it was, my dad was covered in scars. You know, he
Oh.
had scars running right down his chest and everywhere. And so he was made fun of. And so from hearing those stories and watching my dad survive, I had a much bigger picture than
Mm.
all the other people around me. You know, they were worried about what we're doing at school on Tuesday, you know,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking about, you know, the day I'm gonna go to Antarctica and, you know, and you know, survive in the wild or whatever. I had a much bigger picture, which made the little bullying and the little teasing just not important. It just wasn't important because my mind was
Mm.
always on something bigger.
That's
I like it.
incredible. Let's talk about participation trophies because there's there, and I live in, I would say like the mecca of participation trophies here in the Portland, Oregon area, right? And I'm
Mhm.
curious if you feel that there is a danger in that approach, especially this, we're talking like 6, 7, 8 year olds. That's when it's starting, right? They're being
Mhm.
recognized just for showing up. What are your thoughts on that?
They're terrible. They're terrible, and it really really is just not a good thing, because what it's doing is it's teaching our young ones that levels of achievement are not important.
Mm-hmm.
And if levels of achievement become not important, then hard work is not important. And if hard work is not important, then what you said, just showing up is the baseline. That's the goal. Just showing up should never be the goal. That is step one of 100. And so we're really, really cutting our kids short
Yeah.
by handing out the participation trophies. And I remember when I was a kid, Little League football. We were a really good team. We went to the national championships in Las Vegas. And in the first year we played in that championship in Las Vegas, we lost. We lost the game by 8 points. And it was the worst thing that had ever happened to me up until that
Mm.
moment. As a seventh grader, I think it was, that was the worst thing that had ever happened to me, was losing that championship game. And in today's world, I would have gotten a big pat on the back and taken out the ice cream, and everyone would have told me how great second place was, and
Yeah.
and all this stuff. But I wasn't raised that way. I was raised to be a winner. I was raised to not just want to be good, but to be the best. And that's what we need to bring back. That's what we need to
Yes.
bring back. And falling short is okay, but it shouldn't be celebrated.
That's
Right. Right.
Instead, we should encourage to do better next time.
Yeah.
It's okay, but it shouldn't be celebrated for sure.
I think you might appreciate this. My son qualified by default to go to nationals for Taekwondo because they didn't have anyone to fight him in his height, weight, age class. So they're like, great, he can go to nationals. And my husband, I was like in the middle, I'm like, because the master was like, he should really do it. My husband goes, he didn't earn that where he's not going. And I'm like, you're right. And so I immediately had
Yeah.
like this shift in thought process. I'm like, you're right. He needs to feel that earn. Otherwise, like it's not even exciting if you just showed up and then you were awarded the nationals invitation. So yeah, I think there needs to be more of
Thank
that.
you for that story. That it ties in so well with one last story here is
Yeah.
it was the 60-day challenge, the first 60-day challenge ever, with me and my partner Laura. Well, we were doing a 60-day challenge, but on our day 20, they brought in a whole nother group to do a 40-day challenge. And those people were with us, they were near us, we were interacting with them, and I received a lot of hate and vitriol online because I would not share my resources and I would not help those people get to the finish line of their challenge. And for me, I remember when I completed my first 40-day challenge. When I completed that challenge, it was the greatest feeling in the world. I mean, I
Mm.
felt like an Olympic athlete, okay, because
Yeah.
it had never been done before. It was unbelievably difficult. I weighed 134 pounds after my first 40-day challenge. I
Wow.
was emaciated. I went through every form of pain you can even imagine. And so crossing that finish line was such a reward. It was an amazing reward. But why it was so special was because I know that I did it. Right?
Mm.
I crossed
Yep.
that finish line because of me, because of what I did. And I tried to explain that to the group of people that I was out there with that wanted me to help them. They wanted me to pull them along to the finish line, and I told them no.
Good for
And I
you.
said, I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing it for you. I'm saying no for you because I care about you and I want your finish line to be just as special as mine.
Mm.
And if we help our kids too much, and if we give them a little bit too much assistance, we're robbing them of that achievement. We're robbing them of that amazing feeling of accomplishment that they will get if they do it by themselves. And so,
Mm,
yes, kudos to you for doing that for your son, because you didn't do it to him by not
right.
letting him go to finals. You did it for him. Next time he earns it, the day that he walks in that door on day one of the finals, it will be an amazing moment for him. And
Yes.
and you guys did that. So I mean, that's
Awesome.
awesome. Yeah.
I'll give the kudos to my husband because he was the one that that was immediately like, but no, that is, and you know what's really cool with my son, and then I'll let you have it, Ron. But he was very understanding. He didn't push back. He's like, oh, that makes sense, and I'm like, good, like that's so good for the future as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
for
awesome.
sure.
So, Jeff, we've covered a lot of categories of leadership that we're talking about a lot of survival, but it absolutely marries up to the business world, the corporate world, entrepreneurship. A lot of it does. So, another important component is creativity. And we know that some of the world's problems are solved because we had people who were so creative. So, can you think about a time that I mean, I've seen you exercise bushcraft skills and different things, but is there a moment that you're really proud of that you absolutely know had you not been creative, you would not have made it out? Can you remember a time like that?
There's many, and I really,
Yeah.
I really do. When I go in there, for creativity, I call it thinking outside the box, right?
Yeah,
Doing
yeah.
something different than all the other people that are trying to do what you're doing. So I do that all the time, whether or not I know it's even going to work. I see what other people are doing, and I'll purposefully do the opposite. For example, on Last One Standing, season one, it was the challenge was a spring snare, and we all had to run across the African savannah, and we had to find a tree and follow a bunch of bones. And then at the 10th bone, we were to dig up the tools that we would need to build a spring snare. Well, the trail that was going towards the trees, it was a game trail, and everybody was running on the game trail. And I'm thinking, well, that's logical. I understand why they're doing it, but I'm going to try something different. And I left the trail and I ran around the outside of a fishing pond to get to the trees. And
Mm,
my feet got thorns in them, and it was very painful. But I made it to the trees before anybody. And so I was one of the first ones to dig up my tools, and so I was able to win that challenge and move on, because I thought outside the box and I just did something different. So it's huge. It's huge. If I love a saying. It's from Michael Waltrip, NASCAR driver.
Yeah.
But he says, if all you're ever going to do is follow the leader, then the result is just going to be you following the leader. Like you're never going to change your position. You have to do something different, rather than following in the tire tracks of the guy in front of you. You have to, make your own path. And I think that when I'm out there competing, I think if all I'm ever going to do is follow the leader, then I'm never going to get past the leader. And so you have to do something different. Creativity, thinking outside the box, it's not just useful, I'd say it's essential if you want to be the best at what you're doing.
Good stuff.
I couldn't help but think the closest I ever came to tearing up my feet like that, Jeff, was when I was at a house party because my friend's parents were out of town, and the cops showed up, and I booked out into the bushes without my shoes on just to not get in trouble, and had to pick up the shoes the next day, thorns and all sorts of splinters. But no, that's an incredible story. I like the path least taken there. All right, we want you to spill some tea on some of the
Oh boy.
participants.
Oh boy.
Okay, so who are your top 3 male survivalists, and who are your top 3 female survivalists on Naked and Afraid?
Great question. Sure. I mean, you know me, so I'm
You're
always
gonna be
authentically
authentic.
myself. I'm not going to give an answer because it's going to be what people like to hear. But I won't. I also won't give an answer based off of how I feel about the person personally. Like
I like
care
that.
if I like someone or not.
Right.
If they're the best, they're the best. So the male survivalist, the top male survivalist, EJ Snyder, he's definitely up there. Former Army Ranger, 25-year Army vet. Just, I mean, man, the guy's good. The guy's good. Matt Wright, And Matt and I, we butt heads. We're competitors, but the man knows his stuff, and he's one of the best to ever do it. And then after EJ and Matt, oh man, oh
Put
yeah. I mean,
yourself in there, Jeff.
everybody.
Put yourself in there. Come on.
Well, I would never do that. I would never put myself in that's up for other people to decide. But honestly, probably one of the good ones is Dan Link. Dan, he's been on the last one standings with me, and he might not be the best survivalist, but he's really good at some of the things we talked about today: the
Mm.
thinking outside the box,
Yeah.
self confidence, not
No,
showing
he's good.
weakness. Now, for the females, for the women, Laura Zara, number one. Number
Absolutely.
one. And honestly, no one else even holds a candle to Laura. She is so far above and beyond. But some of the others, Riley, the redhead from Maryland,
Yeah.
Riley's got to be pretty good in there. And then,
Can I throw out a
I
name?
got to say, what's that?
I was going to throw out a name. It's a
Yeah,
new that I hadn't seen her that much. Kai from Australia. She
guy
was
from Australia.
impressive. She was
She
impressive. But
is
go
she is
ahead.
very impressive. She loves to share her knowledge as well.
Yeah.
So she's written a lot of books. And I mean, surprisingly, there's a lot of really good women talent, and I think it's because women are naturally mentally tough.
Yeah.
And that's what I've seen. Like you may find a man here or there who's pretty tough, but women, I mean, you girls were born to be tough. Let's just be real. You were born to raise families and to do things like childbirth and everything else. I
Yeah.
think women are naturally built for to be mentally tough, which is fun because I get to witness that out there on these survival
Very cool.
challenges, and it's noticeable.
Yeah,
That is
that's
very
awesome.
cool.
You are very authentic. So let's keep going. I'm loving spilling the tea. By the way, when I did talk to my neighbor, we had so many behind the scenes questions, but I had to remind myself this is a leadership podcast. This is not behind the scenes, but
It
we
doesn't have to
are
be today, Ron.
well, we are going to have a lot of naked and afraid. As a matter of fact, Chris, and I don't know if you know this, but our Facebook administrator, I saw she follows Laura on Instagram,
Oh,
probably
nice.
Jeff as well. So she's going to be so thrilled. I didn't tell her, but she's going to be
She'll
thrilled.
love
She
it.
definitely watches the show. All right, here's one. Since this is the dirty side of leadership, is there a moment someone seriously got under your skin? I'm talking about Jeff pushed your limits. And how did you deal with that, either on camera or behind the scenes?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, one.
We want
I've
names,
never
Jeff.
even. I've never
That
even told
laugh
him
tells
this.
it
I've
all.
never even told him this. But
Really?
but when it happened was last one standing season one when I was being bullied, like we talked about, I was being picked on, and everybody decided to basically have an intervention, right? They came over to my shelter. Okay, which is, I mean, that's my house. Okay, this is like somebody opening your front door and coming into your living room with all the people that have been talking
Oh
crap
my
about you
gosh.
and wanting to sit you down and have a talk. And that's what they did. And they wanted to pull me over to their side. And their side was, oh, we don't want to compete, right? Like we don't want to have a competition. We want to be friends, and we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. But I'm there to win gold, right? I'm not there to be anybody's friend. I'm locked and loaded. And so they come in and do this, and somehow I stay very quiet. I'm silent. I'm a little church mouse, and somehow it evolves into this shouting match where
Oh no.
Matt Wright, all right, I told you we butted heads. Matt Wright comes up to me, and I'm sitting down on a log, naked. He comes up to me and he's yelling at me and he's looking down at me,
Oh
and
jeez.
I have a lot of self-respect. So I'm not going to let another man look down on me and yell at me. So I stand up and he's yelling at me, telling me how bad of a person I am for hurting people's feelings and competing. And the oh man, that like when we're out there in the wild, okay, like I'm a really nice guy. I've never thrown a punch first. I've never, I'm not a fighter. But when we're out there in the wild, we are primal. We are fighting leopards and hyenas, and we're stabbing things with spears. So when Matt gets up into my face, I'm thinking, okay, here we go. Like this is, and I thought I was going to throw a punch. Thank God I didn't. And to answer your question, what I did is I just stood there and quiet, and I just smiled at him. I took all his anger and I threw it right back at him with sunshine. And when you do that, it only makes those people more mad.
Yeah.
It enrages them further. But yeah, that's the closest I've ever come to a full throwdown fist fight on a naked and afraid challenge.
God, I was wanting you guys to fight so badly. I competed in across the country in martial arts, and I did the same thing as you. When I walked into a tournament, I was no one's buddy. I was sizing out the competition, and I was ready to go. And I think that's a part of the reason I've been with you the whole time. I'm just like, they don't get it. And you're right. I remember the intervention. This is just a funny, quick question. Is there anything that Gary Golding won't eat? My God, he eats pig brains, Kristin. I think he would eat maggots. I don't know. I see you guys together a lot. Is he a friend, I assume?
He's a good friend. I love Gary, and the answer is no. It's a hard no. Okay, true story. I was with him just a month ago in Australia, and we took some clients there for a good adventure trip, and we're eating at like a pretty nice restaurant. We had to put on pants and shoes for this, and we were at dinner, and Gary, I look over and there's a bird sitting next to him
Oh
by his feet,
no.
and like a little pigeon, and I'm thinking, that's weird, but I just don't say anything. And he's feeding it, and I'm like, that's weird. Well, out of the corner of my eye, I see Gary reach down and grab this pigeon and pick it up, and he captures this pigeon at, at lunch. And so Gary, he has a tattoo on his back, and it says "consume as little as possible."
Yeah.
It's his motto, his life motto. He literally, oh, the poor girl, the waitress that comes over, he holds up this pigeon and he asks her if she can take it to the back and the chef can cook it up for him.
Oh
And like,
my
I'm just like,
gosh.
I'm face palming right now, and I'm just like, oh, he did not just do that. And the waitress she was mortified. She was horrified that this had happened. But yeah, Gary,
And he was dead
very, very
serious.
authentically himself, and he will eat anything and everything.
I
He's a
just
wild
wondered. I
man.
wonder if that was a show. I mean, Kristin, he would eat until he poisons himself and puts himself off. It's
Oh
just, but
my
it's good to
gosh.
know that he's
Yeah.
authentic.
Oh yeah,
Wait, so
yeah,
how
that's
did that
him.
end though? I mean, did the pigeon get let go?
They would not cook the pigeon.
Yeah.
They would not even think about it. And so Gary released the pigeon like you do, like doves at a wedding, and it was
Oh
this
my gosh.
magical moment. It
That
was
is
wild.
hysterical. That exceeded expectations, Jeff. That was a
To his,
great.
to his credit, he always called himself a forger, but his skill level has risen. He's done some work. He was pretty impressive on Last One
Yeah.
Standing. So
Oh
kudos
yeah,
to Gary.
Gary's a real deal. He's always thought of himself as middle of the ground when it comes to survival skills and competition. But I'd put Gary in the top five
Yeah.
of the best survivalists that do it
Wow.
now, for sure. He has all the qualities we talked about today: the mindset, the optimism, the humor. He has it all.
Creativity, it sounds like.
Creativity, yeah, yeah,
Oh
yep.
my gosh. Okay. So changing gears a little bit. If you were to be speaking to a group of new leaders, could be CEOs, entrepreneurs, or just people trying to survive in corporate America. I did 20 years personally. Ron did it on the government side. But what
Yeah.
would you say is the one lesson from survival that applies to corporate leadership? Like fully clothed
Oh
leadership.
no, for sure. Yeah, fully clothed. I'd have to say so. So when I talk about survival, everybody focuses on the survival skills.
Yeah.
That's all that they go to. And I've seen people that have gone on Naked and Afraid, and they've read all the survival books that they can. They've read the U.S. Army Survival Manual from front to back multiple times, and then they get out there and they tap out on day three,
Mm,
and it's because survival isn't really about the survival skills. It's about the mental game. And I always say survival is 90% mental, 10% skill set. And
mm.
I think the same is probably true for leadership in the corporate world. We've seen it, right? We've seen it. People that have all this knowledge, all these degrees, and all these things, but they lack the social skills, they lack
Yes.
the leadership skills, they lack the things you can't teach, the things that just come
Right.
naturally up here. And if you lack that, you can only read so many books,
Yeah.
right? So I think that's what is most similar in both disciplines, is that it sometimes we're born with certain skills that are going to
Yes.
carry us far, and we need to rely on those things that are up here rather than the things that are in the books or the training manuals.
I love that.
Jeff, this marries up well with that. But I did a post, I think it's up right now on my Instagram story, but it says, I'm sick of empathy. And I swear I started going through, if these conferences, and almost every title is empathy. And I thought, if you really have to set someone down and say, be nice, there's a deeper issue here.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's what they're trying to train people on. But I agree with you. Sometimes you either have that or you don't. So Jeff, we're getting toward the end, but you've parlayed your skills and stuff in the business world, entrepreneurship. Tell us about that. What's the differences, maybe the skills that you bring right into the corporate world? How does that work together for you?
Well, it works really well. When I'm surviving in the wilderness, I enjoy my time. But when I'm not surviving in the wilderness, I like to indulge in the luxurious things about life, you might say. So I actually started my own travel business a few years back called Patanova, patanova.com. And I take groups of people on adventure travel trips all around the world. So these aren't trips like, we're not staying in some Marriott. We're not we're skydiving. We're taking sailing ships to Greenland, photograph polar bears.
Wow.
I'm taking people to Mount Everest Base Camp on a 120-mile trek of the Himalayas next spring. This December, first week in December, I'm taking people on an African safari. But not like the ones that you might buy on Google. We're really going to be out in the wild, and we're going to be tracking lion,
Oh my gosh.
and tracking them in the African savannah. And so I love travel, I love survival, but I don't love the pain and suffering. So for me, I've found a way to get all that I love all in one package through doing these adventure travel trips, and it's been fantastic and fulfilling.
That's so awesome. I would like to volunteer, Kristin. I'll take care of the podcast, Kristin. I'd like for you to go on a trip.
Literally, as you were talking, Jeff, I was like, oh, that would be cool. I'm like, no, because I'm a hypochondriac. So I'm like, okay, that wouldn't be great. And I'm like, but if you're ever going to like survive in like an abandoned castle in Scotland, then that, I could do that. But
we
about
do
as far
some
as I go.
luxurious trips where
Really?
actually here in a couple weeks we're going to Costa Rica, and we're staying in the most luxurious property in the entire country. It's this
Wow.
unbelievable oceanfront villa. It's so gorgeous and pristine. That would be right up your alley.
Yeah, sounds like it. I'm like, I hate to say it, I'm a little bougie these days, I was a country girl back in the day, would sleep under the stars, but things change with age.
Lastly, man,
Yeah.
I am tempted, Kristin, to
I know. I think
what number
Ron's
do you
gonna
take?
book it.
How many do you take at a time? Like, how many people is this?
They're small exclusive groups. So usually it's eight or 10 guests.
Wow.
And
Nice.
I'm the guide, I'm the host. So you're in for a good time, good.
I
We have
imagine.
bonfires on the beach, and
How cool.
we actually went bullfighting in Costa Rica the last trip we went. Not the bullfighting where you hurt the bull, the bullfighting where you wave the
I would
flag at it
totally
and the
do
bull
that.
charges you. And
Oh my
and you have to
gosh.
jump out of the way.
I love
That was
that.
unbelievably exciting. So yeah, you guys have to come. You guys have to
I
come.
think
Just like
we do. That
name
adrenaline
your
dump.
place, and we'll go have an adventure.
Oh my gosh. That would
So
be
Jeff,
insane.
before we close, the business side of that, I get the adventure side, but how did you set this up? Like, how did you use your skills and get this going?
Well, I thought outside the box, like we were talking about. And in the world of travel, I thought, man, there's a lot of trips I would want to do, but they're just not available. I call them ungoogleable. You can't even Google them. They
Nice.
just don't exist. And so I thought, well, there's a market there. And so then I started putting my business cap on and thought, okay, well, there's a market. I found my niche, and then I needed to find my customers, the people that, are adventurous, wild, and crazy enough to do some of these things. And then from there, once I had it, I had the first few trips under my belt, I thought, well, now I want to take this next level, and I want to be the best. So even if there's people that come after me, I want to be the best that does this, and that's what we're
Amen.
trying to do now. So we're trying to make these trips unmatched in every way in terms of luxury and quality, and so yeah, that's we've taken some business principles and mixed them together with some survival principles, and we've got a pretty fun business in Patanova, and people are having the times of their life. Whether it's some people it's their midlife crisis, and other people it's their retirement party, or
Yeah.
their honeymoon, or whatever it is. There's always a reason to get away
You got
and
to
take the
stop,
trip of a
Jeff, because
lifetime.
I'm
Ron's online right now booking.
yeah. All right,
I know,
Kristin.
that's incredible. All right, my last question for you, Jeff. Are we going to see you again on Naked and Afraid or other TV or streaming shows?
Couple of years ago, people thought it might be the last time they ever see me wearing that naked and afraid satchel and necklace. But I tell you what, I have had thousands of people reach out saying, we got to have you back. We got to have you back. And
Yeah.
I mean, there's kids sending me videos of them in a hospital bed with cancer,
Oh,
fighting this unbelievable battle that we can't even comprehend, telling me things like I inspire them and I give them strength,
wow.
and all these things. And so the last couple of years, I've spent some time thinking, going back to my roots and thinking, why did I do this in the first place? I did it because people were saying it was impossible. I was
Mm.
doing it to push the limits and see what humans are capable of. So I think I'm going to do it again. All right, I
All
think I'm going to do it again.
right.
I've heard the voices speak, and I've been touched by them, and so I want to come back, but I want to come back in a bigger way. I want to do something that's never been done before. I want to do
Mm.
something that people might think I'm incapable of doing. Maybe something that I would struggle at personally. So I am going to come back, but I'm going to do it in a bigger splash than we've seen before.
Wow.
You
My
heard
mind is racing like, what would that be?
you heard it here, folks. We got the tea today. Jeff says he's going to
Oh,
return.
incredible.
Wow, in some way.
So
Yeah.
bigger than ever.
Yeah. So, Jeff, we appreciate your honesty, your intensity,
Yes.
your authenticity, of course, and your proof that leadership's more than just a title. It's about grit, clarity, and action. And I got to tell you, Kristin knew this. I'm not a celeb chaser, but I like people who've proven or have done something. And you were literally in the top that I wanted to bring. And by the way, from the show, that no second place there. I told Lisa, my neighbor, I said, I think Matt Wright would just be boring. I said, I got to get Jeff.
Yeah.
That's the guy. That's the head I want to get into.
Yeah.
Is that guy. We're very grateful.
Yes. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And it's been not only just entertaining to hear your stories, but inspiring as well. So thank you.
Thank you guys so much. Honestly, it's an honor. It's been fantastic talking with you, and inspiring as well. It's inspired me to maybe dream a little bigger with some of my ventures. So thank you both.
That's incredible.
All right,
Hey,
everybody.
Well,
go
real
ahead.
quick, Jeff, you might see a group of political influencers signing up for one of your adventures. So
Yeah.
Let's do
There
it.
you go.
we got to get out of the office sometimes,
Yeah. All right, everybody. Be the leader you're meant to be.
We'll see you next week.
The Dirty Side of Leadership podcast is brought to you by Forward Operations. If you'd like to book Ron or Kristin for speaking events, training, or executive coaching, visit forwardoperations.com. Be the leader you're meant to be.